Right, we're joined by Shaun Pollock, one of South Africa's greatest fast bowlers of all time. I don't know if we could call him fast, maybe medium to fast. I think Polly, you were quite fast in your early twenties, right? And then the accuracy and the skill came in as you got a bit older. As I arrived there in the team. How are you, Paul? Where are you? What are you up to?
Yeah, all good, thanks. I think I may be fast for my first year, then maybe to fast medium, and by the end of the career, medium fast. I'm in Greece at the moment, so I turn 50 soon, and in 16th of July. So we brought the family out. They're on school holidays, so we're having a little of family time and getting ready for the next 50. It's been my slowest 50 of my career, that's no doubt, but I'm going to get there.
That is amazing, Paul. Congratulations. I'm almost turning 40, so I'm a good 10 behind you. And
Yeah,
certainly,
it's the new 30. It's the new 30, 40.
yes, I don't know. I'm very happy with the 30s. I could stay here for a little bit longer, but it's catching up now. Anyway, it's always been a great privilege to have played cricket with you. I remember watching your first Test match live when I was 11 years old at Centurion Park. I remember you getting some of the English players out there, and I was watching John T in the net. So yeah, just first of all, for all the viewers, this is one of my role models growing up, and I got the opportunity to play with him, and I call him a friend these days. Polly, thanks for joining us. You must have been watching the Ashes the last while. It's 2-1 in Australia's favour at the moment. What do you think about the standard of cricket? What stands out for you?
Yeah, I think it's been very competitive. I think it was always going to be the litmus test for Bazball to see whether they could continue to play a similar brand and still be successful against one of the better sides, or probably the best Test side that is around after they win the Test Championship. So, yeah, I've been impressed by what I've seen. It's been limited coverage here since I've been in Greece, so I haven't seen much of the third Test. I suppose the tactics are the part that's probably surprised me the most. I think batting wise, the guys would have been hoping to get bigger scores. Your likes of your Roots, your Labuschanes, your obviously Steve Smith. They would all been hoping to get some really big hundreds. So the fact that they haven't been able to dominate, the tactics that have been used with all the short pitch bowling, it's almost been a little bit like Bodyline with a kind of tactic being implemented where you don't really have any other option but to try and score in a certain area. But when you try and score there, they've got fielders there and there's that risk of getting out. So I don't think it's been the best viewing, that part of it. I enjoyed the initial parts of it, particularly when there was just a contest of bat and ball. But, we've had 3 results, which I think is important. And I think that last match for England to win it was vital as well, just to keep the series alive and keep the interest going.
We've seen the English to Travis Head straight away. I don't think they've pitched the ball up to him in this whole series, and it's so weird. He's been scoring runs, and I don't know, Paul. Yeah, so I would like to dig a little bit more into that one. Where does that come from? How much do you believe in that kind of stuff? Short pitch bowling, sticking to it. Surely there's an over or two first that you need to try and nick the guy off and go from there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think initially you've got to try and use your skills and see if you can get him out. I mean, I think this comes from Neil Wagner, to be totally honest. And I think it's, Brendan McCullum who's actually kind of watched it unfold. With his physique, he's short in stature, he runs in and he kind of hits that short pitch delivery quite often. And the ball doesn't really ping over the top of the batters. So, that the 2 bounces for the over doesn't really come into play as much as, say, for example, if you had a Jofra Archer who's particularly tall. So I think that's where it's kind of come about. I can remember that series where initially he was very successful against England. I think it was 2 tours back. The only experience I've ever had of it, and I don't know if you remember it, we were trying to save a match there in Durban. I think I got run out by a certain A.B. de Villiers while we were trying to save the Test match. But do you remember Steve Harmison came around the wicket to us, set a very similar field. And I must admit, batting there at that time, I thought, well, what's my options? I mean, because we were trying to survive, I was just kind of trying to bob and weave, trying to knock a few balls down, trying to leave as many as possible. But if you have to play a sustained period of time in the same fashion, like there wasn't really an option that you were comfortable with. I mean, you almost have to be very good at judging the exact length that the ball's going to get you, because that's maybe the one that you can control, roll the wrists, and maybe try and pick a gap. But it's not something that you've grown up doing. It's not something that a lot of people are comfortable with. And, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 test matches down the line, you'll have a wonderful understanding about which one you go after, which one you don't. If the ball's new, you can maybe try and hit it out the ground rather than trying to roll the wrists. But I think the key to it is that no one really knows or has been successful in playing in that fashion. And therein lies the challenge. But the fact that they stuck to it for so long, that was the huge surprise for me. To have what I think at one stage was 98% of the deliveries were regarded as short, so that's shorter than 7 meters or 8 meters, whatever the reading is on Hawkeye. Sustained. And I think from a batting side, you think, well, they'll stop this at some stage, and if they don't, like, what is your plan? I mean, what would you have done?
Yeah, I know, spot on. And I said I really wanted to talk about it because I went through a few patches like that in my career where they decided to come short at me, and my immediate reaction would be to attack and get them off it. I've never faced a sustained period of short pitch bowling. I think the longest was probably my last Test series in PE where they decided to come around the wicket, the Aussies, and it probably lasted for about 5 overs, and I was scoring, and therefore they were forced to change, and because it was quite expensive for them. But I could only imagine being a Travis Head, having only faced short pitch bowling for this entire series. Fields are out, the fine leg is there, there's a catching guy around the bat. It must be very uncomfortable and pretty tough. And credit to him for actually finding a way to still keep scoring. I don't think it's very easy when guys know what they're doing with the ball in hand. So it's very interesting, and I think we could talk about this for ages. I think also some bowlers do it really well, and some not so much.
I
But
think the other thing that's key is that they've learned where to put the fielders. In our day, we were still too scared to take mid on and mid off away, and we thought, no, we can't do that. You've got to still keep those guys in place. Whereas they've been quite smart about where they've managed to place everyone. And almost, I mean, at one stage, the kind of option was, okay, well, give yourself room and hit it over the offside. Well, they put someone there. Then they put someone square in the offside, square in the leg side. So I think that's been the part where they've given it a lot of thought, and the process as a batter has become more difficult.
very interesting. It's not easy to score, 100%. Okay, but enough of that, Paul. Who's going to win the series?
Well, I would think Australia should win it. I think this is important, nice little shot in the arm for England, having won that Test match. But I don't see them losing the next two. Australia, I still think, bowling wise, I think they've just got the better options. I think Nathan Lyon was obviously a huge blow.
Yeah.
And do they go the route of maybe trying to turn something, or produce a surface that turns? Where's the next ones? Oval and Trent Bridge, is it? Actually, I think it's Manchester. That's it, Manchester in the Oval. So, South Africa last year when they went there, they played two spinners. So, will they try and make it turn? What sort of surface? I think England would be wanting a result kind of pitch, maybe similar to what they produced against South Africa. But I think for me, it would just seem that I would be very surprised if your Steve Smith and your Labuschagne don't get themselves a big score at some stage. So I just think it's still advantage Australia. But as I said earlier, I'm really glad that the third test was won by England because it keeps the series nicely alive.
It does. It's certainly alive, and it's very interesting what you mentioned there. We've seen Moeen Ali bowl really well. Nathan Lyon out of the series. Could it be an opportunity for England maybe to make it turn a little bit there at Old Trafford? And obviously on a turning deck when it's a bit slower and not so bouncy, Mark Wood will still be in the game because it's not bouncing so much. It's really difficult to get under it. Talking about Mark Wood, speed through the air, Polly. Have you been impressed?
Yeah, I was. I think he'd been chomping to have an opportunity and really showed what he was capable there at Headingley. And that's the one thing. There's fast bowlers who are big and tall and you can get underneath, but it's those skiddy-natured ones which can be a real handful. And he's got such good energy. I think he's come in well rested, and now he goes into this next one. I'm sure he'll play with loads of confidence. So. Yeah, I think he'll be the one to watch out. A lot of the 3 bowlers or 4 bowlers that they used in the series so far are similar in nature, kind of hovering around just over 80. It's that little bit of X factor that Mark Wood brings, that I think was the key to how they performed at Headingley. And also the way he wrapped up the tail. Those are important things to do as a faster bowler, and he did that really well.
Yeah, it's definitely been the difference. And you briefly touched on Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne or Labuschagne as they call him. Um, I see it going two ways. Either that really made them hungry to go and score next time, because that was a big turning point in the Test match. I mean, two soft wickets. You add on another 100 at that total, and they're cruising the Test match. And they were very capable of doing that. Both soft. Marner's a sweep. I don't mind the top edge, but having the direction wrong is very weird. You can easily just move a little bit across and make sure you hit it more to square leg. Even if you top edge it, it's safe. And same with Steve Smith, really trying to force one with that catcher right there. It can creep into the head. That's the other thing, Paul. Do you think it'll make them hungrier, or will it maybe start making them think, "Ooh, if we fail again, we might go 2-2 in this series"?
Yeah, I think for me, when I watched them play against us in Australia, I think what really impressed me about them is that they got a good understanding about the moment of the game, where they were. I mean, I can remember there was a session in Brisbane in particular, and there was a session in Melbourne where they absorbed a lot of pressure. South Africans weren't really creating too much; it was a little bit flat, but they didn't come out of their shell. They were very particular about building that innings, getting themselves in, and establishing the innings. I think that's maybe where they've been missing a little bit. Even at the first Test match, I was very surprised with the way Marnus got himself out. He is normally very watchful. He was caught like a meter away from the bat, just pushing the hands out of it. So I think that's the surprise for me. I've always appreciated that skill that both of them have in order to really like almost absorb, get into their shell, make sure they get through a particular period, and then once they've got in, ground the other team away, and then really become positive as the innings goes on. And as you say, that was the opportunity for them to go on and nail the series. I mean, if you sit there and think you're 2-0 up, if we nail the next hour or 2 hours, that's it. The series is done. Now they've opened the door. So I think they'll be very hungry. I mean, they're proud of performance. They're both ranked so high in those batting departments, and they love to play big innings and have an impact. So I think they'll come back even more hungry.
Yeah, I've played with Marnus at the Brisbane Heat in the BBL before, and I know Steve Smith pretty well as well. And both of them are absolute nuppies when it comes to cricket. They study the game. They sleep with their bats in the beds. So the hunger will certainly be there. It's a matter of mental toughness and how sound they are mentally, and how prepared they will be to just sort of start again, I think. But it's very exciting, and thanks for joining us, Polly. Let's see what happens in the Ashes. You saying Aussie will come out on top? I think with this momentum that the English picked up, there's a good chance for it to be squared 2-2, and then it's all to play for in that final one. But let's see what happens. It's all to play for. And luckily, we're neutrals. We can call it as we see it.
Exactly. Should be good.
100%. And happy birthday for the 16th of July. Happy 50th. May there be many more. And thanks for being Shaun Pollock, the legend of all legends. Have a fantastic
Thanks.
holiday.
Thanks, Abe. All good.